welcome to another session of Taters and Shrimps on the Barbie. My name is Craig Jamieson. I'm in Boise, Idaho, USA, which would make me and my buddy over here, Mr. Potato Head, that would make us the Tater. And we're joined today by Ross Keating from the Gold Coast of Australia, not the Tin Coast or the Brass Coast. Yeah, with his fake background. At least my background is real. You're actually seeing my office here, whereas he is not on a high rise overlooking the ocean like this. In actuality,
but it is the Gold Coast.
But Ross, why don't you say hi to everybody and tell people a little bit about yourself?
Hi, folks. I'm Ross Keating at Nextree Business Growth Consultancy on the Gold Coast, and this is the Gold Coast. Behind my shoulder, I might not be in the high rise, but I was just down past that tall building yesterday afternoon having coffees, and about 100 feet from the beach. So it's not a bad spot to be. And I work with businesses and business owners who are working all hours under the sun, and they're not getting the expectations. And one of the problems that I find is that people are saying, I need to get more sales, and really they are actually getting the leads, but they're not converting enough of the leads. And I work with businesses across those areas to get more customers by working through strategies to increase sales, reduce expenses, get more bang for your marketing buck, increase productivity and efficiencies, and make more profit. So that's what I do down here on the Gold Coast, across Australia, and sometimes up in the US. Okay, back to you for our show on the process of implementing Nimble CRM.
You betcha. I'm also close to the beach, a little farther than 100 feet. I'm about 400 miles, but that's pretty close. So we're kind of like, but we do have rivers and rafting and lakes and all of that. So, today's topic is the process of implementing Nimble CRM. Both Ross and I represent Nimble. What we're going to talk about is because, we do Nimble, we'll talk about Nimble, but of course, as we talk about these things, it's applicable to pretty much any CRM. There might be some differences. You'll also find differences in the way that if you're working with somebody like myself or like Ross to assist you with an implementation, they might approach it, in a slightly different manner, or maybe even a completely different manner. But this is the way I do it, so that's what we're going to talk about. Now, we did talk about previously, tips on for CRM, selecting a CRM and everything. This is a little bit different. We're actually going to be talking about the step-by-step that's involved in actually implementing it. So, and this is going to take into account that I'm going to assume you've answered two major questions, and we've talked about these, before in previous sessions here. You said CRM, yes, I do want a CRM. I do want to implement a CRM, and CRM, which one? You've selected a CRM, so that would be the first big step. So now it's really time to do a lot of preparation, for the CRM of your choice. If you don't have the forethought to think about these things before you actually get started, that is highly not recommended. And the reason is that one thing is it's going to take a lot longer to do your implementation, which means more money and more time for you to expend. And the other thing is that things tend to get jumbled up if they're not done in a specific process and the specific stages and steps. Which, anything can be fixed, but, sometimes it's a little bit more extensive than other times, especially when people, as I like to say, they go off the reservation and they start doing stuff on their own. That can be a little bit dangerous. So, once again, this is how, I advise people, step by step. And it's important that you follow the steps and talk to whoever you're working with on this, because there's some things that you need to have done prior to doing other things, or it won't work right. And one of the biggest ones, and I'll just throw that out right now, is people will go ahead and they say, well, I've got all these contacts that I want to bring over from either another CRM, or it could be from, a CSV file, a spreadsheet file they have, whatever. and they want to go ahead and they want to import all of this data into their new CRM, Nimble. And then they go in there and they're like, well, why didn't I get this information? Why didn't this information come across into Nimble? Well, the reason could be, and probably is, that you may have had data that was unique to your file that you're bringing in where there was no place to put that data within Nimble. Okay, so that's one of the things that you want to prepare for. So let's talk about some of those things here. One is, of course, looking at your existing data that you want to bring over, making sure it's clean, making sure that it's deduped if that's a thing, if that's possible, spelling errors, incomplete information, whatever comes, it's the garbage in, garbage out. If it's messed up on your end right now, and you bring it over into your CRM, it's going to be just as messed up. So that's one of the things that you want to be taking care of. Another thing is you should have identified your users and what their roles would be within the company. So typically you're going to have an admin person that will have access to everything within your CRM within Nimble. You may have management people that will have access to data that encompasses their team activities, et cetera, and then you'll have team members. So you should have those roles established because you're going to be talking about what their permissions are and what their privacy settings may be. You also should have already identified what you want to see come out of your CRM. Because as we go in there and we're starting to, customize and we're starting to do the training, et cetera, speaking for myself, if I know what your goals are and exactly what you want to have come out of the CRM, I customize the training around that. Okay. So it's very, very important that you think about this beforehand. Now, for me, 1 week prior to our first session, I send out a packet to my people that has a checklist. It's got some worksheets. And this is at least 1 week in advance. And it's got all sorts of things where you can be thinking about some of the customizations, et cetera, that you want to make. And it's important to take the time to go through that and complete that as much as possible before we actually get started. So, Ross, are there any other things like you do as far as like preparation, before you get started with helping somebody?
The key is the data, and so often I've seen that in the past where people have taken the data from the old system and across the new system without looking at it, and then the team that's using them, and often that's the sales team initially, they say this is useless. It's got old data, it's out of date, and it destroys the trust in the system. And to me, that's one of the key things is that, and who's going to be doing it. And it's not just the admin person, who's going to champion the system, the person. That's what I always like to find is somebody who's responsible for championing it, and the person who's going to get out there and get everybody revved up and say it's a really good thing. You need the admin person, but you need somebody who's going to champion it to the management of the organization, plus to the people who are onboarding onto it. That's the two things I would say there, Craig.
Okay, absolutely. And typically, when I do an implementation, assist a company with an implementation, we're going to be going, anywhere between 6 and 8 sessions. Those might be held weekly or maybe twice a week. The sessions can range from 1 hour to 2 hours, depending on, what your particular needs are. Everything, once again, is customized to your needs. But the first session, and one of the things that, Ross pointed out, who's going to be doing what, I always say that the first session is something that really involves, like, the business owner, the administrator person, that type of thing only. It's not something that typically team members and managers that aren't going to be involved in all the user settings and everything that they have to be involved in. Although there could be, where you would go and you would get some of their input on some of the important things we're going to talk about here. So you're going to create your account in Nimble. Of course, we're going to review all the settings here in this first session. We're going to create user groups and permissions. So that means we're going to define that this is our admin group, this is our management group, this is our team group. We can do that and set all the permissions and everything. The goal behind all of this, especially in the initial session or sessions, depending on how much needs to be done, is you would like to have your users, when they come in for training, you would like them to step into a system that's ready for them. It's ready for them in terms of data. It's ready for them in terms of customizations, all of that. Okay. So we're not doing that in between, and people, they got enough to remember just to learn how to use it without having to figure out how to customize it. Okay. We're going to do that custom field creation. Once again, there may be fields of information that are unique to your business. You'll want to have that within contact records within Nimble, or maybe it's within deal records, or maybe it's part of your workflows, or whatever it may be. But you have those custom fields. Once again, custom fields for data that you're bringing across from another data source, if those fields are not already found within Nimble, is extremely important. Otherwise, your import isn't going to be what you want it to be. We're going to create custom activities. One of the nice things about Nimble is that it allows you to, help you to keep on track with things, with tasks, with reminders, with the events, all of this type of thing. We can also set custom activities if you want to get down into the weeds a little bit deeper, where you want to monitor, how many virtual calls that I have, how many on-site calls that I have. You can do that, and there's some other things that we can do with custom activities. We create your workflows and your pipelines. Workflows and pipelines, if you're not familiar with the difference of it, at least within Nimble, they're both process. They're the stages in a process. When I think of a workflow, a common, because I have a sales background and I think of CRM primarily as a sales tool. Other people might argue with me, but that's the way I look at it. Okay. So a good workflow would be a lead qualification workflow. Somebody calls up and they say, hey, I'm interested in your product or service. And you take them through various different steps to make sure that they're qualified before they actually become a bona fide deal. That would then become a pipeline activity. So the major difference between a pipeline activity and a workflow from a lead qualification to a deal is there's a dollar value involved. There's a projected close date. There may be some other information here, but we can customize these for your particular needs. So it's important that we have that information available before we get started. We're going to connect your calendar. We're going to connect your email, any email IMAP, but Nimble plays very well with Microsoft and with Google. It will also play with Microsoft and Google calendars. Okay, so we're going to collect that. And if you might want to bring contacts over from those particular sources, depending on what you're using, there can either be some by synchronization. And Ross, on our next session, is going to be talking a little bit about synchronization and integrations here, but can by synchronize contact information. But that, once again, that is, especially if you're dealing, I'll just throw this out, if you're dealing with Microsoft and you want a two-way contact synchronization, there's a lot to talk about to make sure that that operates properly for you. And then finally, we're going to go ahead and we're going to import your contact records, or whether that comes from a CSV or from a V card, or, from some other recognized source that Nimble might already have. So what do you do in the first session there that I might have missed there, Mr. Ross?
You've actually covered it really, really well there, Craig. That first session, to me, as you say, is not about getting the users there. It's getting... I like to have the senior management there, because why are they installing that, having it implemented across the organization? What's the benefit for them? And you got to make it clear benefits for them. Got to have clear benefits, and what are the parts that you're doing? What are the customization was really, really important, because I've actually been in a project where once they started, we hadn't gone through enough of the customization initially in the scoping, and we found that there was a need in one part of the organization that they needed a lot more in-depth customization to make it really work for them, and it pushed the project out of it. But at least we got there. We didn't have the staff trained, and then they were waiting extra long. We were able to manage that going forward. But the other thing is, what I always use that session for is to say, this is how you can use the CRM to your benefit as management, and not use it as a big stick over the staff. And effectively, what I used to say to the management of the organizations is, if the information, you've got to use the CRM to get to see what information is in there so you can answer the normal questions, who sales calls and what they're doing. What you want is to get in a report from your sales team is the soft intelligence that's really hard to get out of a CRM. That's what you want. And that saved a lot of fear of using a CRM, because people often still think of a CRM as they're just tracking what I do. And I really hate that feeling when it gets down there. That's a really important part of my first session.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've always believed in a CRM just because I want something to keep me on track, because I get off track so easy. But yeah, I don't worry about the sales manager or anything like that. So let's talk about subsequent sessions here. We're gonna be going through every aspect of Nimble step by step. Okay, it's important for everyone to please do their best to attend every session. Now, I know things happen. Okay, here's the favorite. Here's the favorite. Well, I had a client call up and they wanted to see me. Well, here's what I'd like you to do. Apply the Hawaii rule to them. Maybe not so much for you over there, Ross, but over here this works. If you were headed to the airport on a vacation trip to Hawaii, would you cancel that trip and take care of whatever this customer needs, or would you find somebody else to help that customer, or would you ask them to maybe, could we take care of it when we got back? The answer is probably going to be, I'm going to Hawaii. Okay, so that's the answer. Okay, never BS a BSer. I mean, I've been at this for too long. So try. It's really, really important that you attend these sessions. And if you can't, I mean, I record all the sessions, and they go in a nice little folder. Watch the video in the case that you can't. But please, please, please try to attend the sessions. If you got questions, raise them. There's no such thing as a stupid question. If I, for example, am not explaining myself properly, that's my problem, not your problem. So please stop me and ask me to, give it to you like a 2-year-old, which is the way that I like to get most of my information. Okay. And then in between sessions, it's really important to practice doing the things that we've discussed. It's anything new is always uncomfortable until you practice enough. And then it becomes comfortable, and then it becomes reflex. But if you never practice it, that's going to be a problem. So that's about it for me today. Ross, I'll let you take us out. I've had enough talk time today.
You've done really well, Craig. The information, those sessions are just so important. And I've got to admit, I've never worked with the organization where the people have not turned up without a good excuse. They really had to be on their deathbed, and going to a client visit wasn't an option unless it was a drop dead client issue. The practicing, the one thing I would suggest to people is bribery and corruption works. And to get them through stages, if you do this and we get to this stage, then we do that. Particularly what I found with updating data, the best people to update the data is the users. And I would use a 3-month incentive, 60-day, 90-day incentive. You go through, and if you get it up to that, you update your data, then you can have the prize of your choice, be it, they want wine and dine or a short, some books or gift vouchers, whatever. You got there, Rocky, and that worked.
How's that? Oh, sorry. My bad.
You're bad. But that's where we're going. So, Craig, thanks very much for going through that in detail. Folks, if you want to contact Craig and I, throughout the show, there's a link being going for myself, and I'll just show Craig, so I'm just going through now. Please don't hesitate to contact us. We're on anywhere on social media, on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook for me, and I know Craig's on Twitter and LinkedIn. Contact us, ask us questions. No questions too dumb, and this applies to any CRM. We do support Nimble because we believe it's one of the best CRMs on the marketplace, but we want you to use a CRM, and we will help you make the most of it to get the most out of your CRM. So that's it for today. Craig, thanks very much. Taters and Shrimps on the Barbie. I think I'll have mine on the beach. Thanks very much. Not 400 miles away.
All righty then.
Hey, have a great day, Craig.
Bye-bye now.
Bye, folks.